These towers and spires are part of Oxford University, the oldest university in Britain. Students have been coming here for 800 years. It began in the 12th century with small groups of teachers giving lessons in churches. Today, the university is a federation of 35 colleges, with hundreds of buildings and a total of 12,000 students. It's a place of young people and old traditions. Here, teachers are called dons and still wear black gowns. Students are taught one-to-one in the Socratic tradition. At the university library, you can still see notices written in Latin, the ancient language of scholars. Students at Oxford are surrounded by beautiful stone buildings and by reminders of the university's long history and old traditions. This is Hertford College, one of the smaller colleges in the university. About 200 students live and work here. But life at Oxford is not all work. There are clubs and societies for every interest and every kind of sport. This is croquet, which began as a French game, but is now more popular in Britain. The Sheldonian Theatre, used for concerts and university ceremonies. Opposite the Sheldonian is the most famous shop in Oxford, where students and dons buy books. There are books on every subject, and one of the largest book rooms in the world, with 7 kilometres of shelves. Oxford has a large number of pubs and cafes, where you can buy cheap food or have a drink with friends. In term time, they're full of students. In summer, the tourists take over. Two rivers flow slowly through the city and past the colleges. This boat is called a punt. If you visit Oxford or Cambridge, you should try punting on the river. It's fun, but it's not as easy as it looks. You should also visit some of the beautiful gardens in and around Oxford. This garden has a maze. First, you must find the centre of the maze. It can take quite a long time, and it's just as difficult to find the way out. North of Oxford, the River Avon runs through the town of Stratford-upon-Avon, the birthplace of England's greatest poet and dramatist.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them.
William Shakespeare spent most of his working life in London, but he grew up in this house in Stratford, and he returned to Stratford in his old age. Little is known about his early life, but he probably attended this school. It's in the centre of the town, which still has many other buildings from Shakespeare's time. He was still a teenager when he married Anne Hathaway. They lived in this thatched cottage and had 3 children. Then, at the age of 24, Shakespeare left for London, where he became one of the greatest dramatists of all time. Wales is a land of green hills, forests and farms. Most of the people speak English, but there is also a Welsh language and a Welsh culture. Every year in August, in an enormous tent, there's a national festival of Welsh music, poetry, dance and song. The festival is called the Eisteddfod. Eisteddfod is a Welsh word which means a meeting. This choir is singing the same song as the first choir, because the Eisteddfod is a competition. At the end of the festival, the winners will be chosen. This is North Wales, where you can follow mountain paths for miles and miles. It's a good place to learn climbing too, and to enjoy all kinds of outdoor activities. A good way to see Wales is on horseback, and you don't have to be an expert rider. You can get away from the crowds and ride through woods and green hillsides, with streams and waterfalls flowing down into the valleys. The Welsh name for these falls is Rhaeadr y Wennol. It means Swallow Falls. They are at Bettws-y-Coed, which means a warm place in the wood. This is the view from the top of a hill called Great Orme's Head on the north coast. It's a long, hard climb to the top, but if you prefer, you can take the tram. Llandudno, the town where the tram begins its climb, is a popular seaside resort. These signs are in Welsh and in English. It's the same all over Wales. Near Llandudno is Conwy, where the River Conwy flows into the sea. In the past, Conwy's harbour was busy with fishing boats and boats exporting copper and slates. Now they are mostly pleasure boats. But there are still a few fishermen left, and you can still buy fish that is fresh from the sea. Everyone in Wales can speak English, but about 20% of the people use both English and Welsh.
Yes. Thank you very much.
About 700 years ago, Edward I, the English king, conquered Wales. He built strong stone castles like this one to show his power. In this folk dancing group, the women are wearing the tall black hats and long dresses of the Welsh national costume. Folk dancing is still popular in Wales, and it's an important part of the national Eisteddfod. Bath is an unusual city because it was built for leisure and health. Most of its elegant houses were built in the 18th century, when Bath became a fashionable spa, a place where rich people came to drink the healthy water that rises up here from deep underground. The houses were built with the pale golden-coloured stone from the nearby hills. The work of artists in stone, both ancient and modern, can be seen all over the city. Some of the terraces in Bath were built in a crescent or circular shape. This is the Royal Crescent, the first terrace ever built as a crescent. These elegant classical buildings and broad streets replaced older houses. You might think that Sally Lunn was a very important person. In fact, she was a street seller of cakes and buns who invented a new kind of bun. Well, buns are eaten with tea, and tea is important to the British. Some of Bath streets are closed to cars, so walking around, relaxation and pleasant conversation are as popular as they were in the 18th century. In those days, the favourite meeting place, the social centre of Bath, was this building, the Pump Room. Nowadays, you can drink tea here in the elegant atmosphere of the 18th century. These sedan chairs were used to carry rich people who didn't want their fine clothes to get dirty in the streets. The Pump Room was built over a spring, where natural hot water comes up from underground. This water contains many minerals which are good for you. Every day, 1 million litres pour out of the ground at a temperature of 49 degrees centigrade. The English were not the first to enjoy this warm, healthy water. Nearly 2,000 years ago, the Romans built hot baths, swimming pools, and a temple here. After the Romans left Britain, their buildings disappeared under new buildings and streets. But when the Great Roman Bath was found in 1878, its metal pipes were still working, and its stone columns were still supporting the street above it. These 18th century bathers did not know that a bigger Roman bath lay hidden nearby. The river in Bath is called the Avon, a common name for rivers in Britain. The bridge was inspired by a famous Italian bridge in Florence. Near Bath, you can visit beautiful gardens and classical country houses. This one was a private home, but now it's a school. The Kennet and Avon